Okay, today you're going to be learning about 6.6 inequalities in two triangles. And what you're going to learn is that you're going to compare different measures in triangles, and you're going to solve real-life problems using the hinge theorem. Okay, so the hinge theorem is, if you think about a door to the classroom, and say you open the door a certain degree measure, okay? Say we open it 60 degrees or so. Well, this is the door, okay, and here's the classroom opening. And the distance we're talking about is the distance from the door to your actual opening, and it's always going to be across from the angle that you're talking about. Well, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be comparing the distances. So say I open the door really wide, say about 120 degrees. Here's the door, here's the opening, and you're going to be comparing how wide the door opens essentially, and that's what this section's all about, and you can read that a little bit more if you need better clarification. It's just talking about the gate opening up more. Okay, so here's your two theorems. I copied this so that way you can kind of see it a little bit better on the video. We have theorem 6.12, the hinge theorem. Okay, and it says if two sides of one triangle are congruent to two sides of another triangle, so that's pretty important. You have the two sides congruent, and the included angle of the first is larger than the included angle of the second, then the third side of the first is longer than the side of the second. Basically, it's just saying if you have two sides and they're congruent, okay, and you look at your included angle, that means the angle in between. Whichever one is bigger, you're comparing your side lengths that are across from those. Whichever one's bigger is going to have the bigger side length. Okay, so in this case, since angle V was 38 degrees and angle B was only, angle V was 88 degrees and angle R was 35 degrees, we can then say XW is greater than ST. Okay, so we're going to be given angles and we're going to be comparing the opposite sides. Alright, also the converse of the hinge theorem, if two sides of one triangle are congruent to two sides of another triangle, then the third side of the first is longer than the third side of the second, and the included angle is larger. So now we're given side lengths and we need to compare the angles. Okay, so we're given side lengths and we're comparing the angles, and that's just saying whichever one has the biggest side is going to have the bigger angle across from it. Okay, so let's try some examples. Okay, on these exercises, we're going to state which one is bigger. Alright, so we have BC and EF. We need to figure out which side is bigger. Well, if you look across from BC, we have an angle of 35 degrees. And if you look across from EF, we have 45 degrees. Well, 45 degrees is actually the bigger angle, so it's going to be a greater side than BC. Okay, remember, alligator always eats the big one, or the arrow always points to the smaller one. Alright, so number 2, same thing. We're going to be comparing BC to EF. Okay, so we're going to look at our angles that are across from those sides. Alright, well, BC has an angle of 95, EF has an angle of 20, so you can see that BC is going to be longer than EF. Number 3, same thing. Alright, and you also need to be checking that they have two side lengths that are the same. So see how these have 1 tip mark and 2 tip marks, and then we're comparing the included angle. Okay, well, in this case, we have BC and EF, and if we look across, they both have 90-degree angles, and we know that two of the legs are congruent, so these are actually going to be equal in length. Okay. 4 through 6 is just comparing angle measures. Alright, so for number 4, we see that the 1 tip mark is going to be the smallest, 2 tip marks is going to be the middle size, and 3 tip marks is going to be the larger size. So if we want to compare angle A and angle D, we need to see what tip marks they're across from. Well, angle A is across from the one that has 3 tip marks, and angle D is also across from the one that has 3 tip marks. So that actually means that they're going to be equal measurement. Okay. Alright, angle A is across from 14. Angle D is across from 16, and you have to think to yourself, okay, which one's bigger? Well, 16 is bigger than 14, so my alligator is going to eat angle D. Or it's going to point to the smaller one, which is angle A. Alright, number 6, we have the measure of angle A is across from angle 9, and we have angle D is across from 2, and now I want you to figure out which way the arrow goes, and if you're coming to my class, you need to put that on your sticky note when you come in class tomorrow. And you also need to put what number it's for. Okay, let's move on. Alright, so 7 through 9, it gets a little bit more complicated, but not really too terribly much. Now we're going to compare side lengths on 7. Okay, so we're comparing AB to AC. Remember, you look across to see which angle measurement is bigger. And in this case, AB is bigger. Alright, on number 8, if you're in my class, you need to do that on your own, and you also need to put that on your sticky note as well. And number 9, we're comparing angle 1 and angle 2. So if we look at angle 2, we see it's across from 17. And if we look at angle 1, we see it's across from 19. So you have to think to yourself, okay, which one's bigger, 17 or 19? Hopefully you all said 19. And we know that angle 1 has to be bigger. Okay, let's try a word problem. So starting from a point 10 miles north of Crow Valley. So we have Crow Valley, and we have something 10 miles north. A crow flies northeast for 5 miles. Okay, and we have another crow starting from a point 10 miles south of Crow Valley. Flies due west for 5 miles. Okay, and we need to know which crow is farther from Crow Valley. Okay, so if we connect this to Crow Valley, so this is bird number 1, and we're going to connect this one. This is going to be bird number 2. I'm actually going to redraw this real quick. Sorry about that bell. So this one's northeast, and then we have this one that's strictly west. So that's 5, that's 10, that's 10, and that's 5. Okay, you have to think to yourself, okay, which one has a bigger angle? And we're trying to compare the red line and the blue line. Well, crow number 1 is actually going northeast, so this is going to be bigger than a 90-degree angle, so bigger than 90 degrees. And if you think about crow number 2, well, it's south and then he goes west. So that's an actual 90-degree angle. Okay, well, and we use the hinge theorem to compare these. Well, if I'm looking at the blue line for crow number 2, it's across from the 90-degree angle. And if I'm looking at the red line for crow number 1, this one's actually going to be bigger than 90 degrees. So the crow that actually flew the farthest was crow number 1. Okay, if you're in my class, make sure you post your 2 answers on the sticky note. As for everyone else, you will be doing more examples in class, and make sure you're asking questions. Thank you for watching.